Hello and welcome to Film Ireland podcast in association with Still Voices, an international film festival based in Ballymahon, County Longford. The festival will be presenting films and events from November 9th to the 13th. I'm Paul Farren, and in this programme I'll be talking to three filmmakers about their horror shorts, which will be screened at the Still Voices Film Festival. Thank you for joining us. It's really lovely that you made it. Thank you so much. Congratulations on your film being in the festival. It's a lovely little festival, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The Still Voices. I looked at the programme. There's a few other great films there I'd love to check out. So let's introduce each other. So Derek, you introduce yourself to me and the guys.
Hi everyone. My name is Ugochukwu. I am the writer-director of You're Not Home. Yeah, so we're going into Still Voices, and it's a very lovely festival in Longford, so we're very happy to be included.
To get the plug in. I like it. You guys, tell me about yourselves.
I'm Clare, Cushinan. I co-direct with
Ryan O'Neill. We're part of a filmmaking duo, kind of an independent do-it-ourselves kind of situation. So we would make a lot of short films and music videos and some corporate, but not a lot.
And Changeling is our biggest short to date, our biggest small film, and it's playing at Still Voices. It will be the end of its festival.
Yeah, it'll be its last festival screening.
So you've been traveling all over. Have you been around the globe with it?
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah. America. We've had a couple of screenings, and Canada. Yeah, not anything in Europe, unfortunately, but it has done a lot in Ireland in the past year.
Can I get both of you to give your brief premise? Because I don't want to give the premise.
So the premise of You're Not Home is a psychological horror set in direct provision. And that is it.
That says it all, really, doesn't it? No politics insinuated whatsoever. But again, it's very strong in its themes. Again, I don't want to give anything away, but it's about a young boy in, as you say, in direct provision, and how he feels isolated and afraid and paranoid by his circumstance, and it takes on what may be a supernatural aspect or not, or the root of madness.
I'm afraid that's not something I can do for you.
Why not?
Bit of advice. Don't rock the boat. Those that do end up at the bottom of the sea.
I'm not spending another night in this hellhole.
And can you do your premise, guys?
I'll let the writer do this one.
Oh no. Okay. So Changeling is a folk horror, an Irish language folk horror based in the 1800s. What year would you say?
1879.
1879. Somewhere in Ireland. We're a bit ambiguous with that. It is about fear and superstition, which take hold of a small, isolated family in rural Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're terrible at being concise here.
Would it be set around famine time, or were you avoiding any specifics? It is, yeah. That's right.
It was originally supposed to be set in the Great Famine, but we changed it to the Small Famine, the Gortabug, which was 30 odd years later, just to play into the inherent psychological fear of starvation and fear of famine returning. We thought that would play well into the background fear that would manifest itself in some parts of the film.
Coolness, Tridge de Vale.
Folk horror is on the rise thanks to who's that American filmmaker Eggers, who did The Witch. He's brought it back to prominence. Derek, yours isn't far removed from having folk horror aspects as well. I mean, you've all seen each other's movies, yeah?
Yeah.
Mhm,
I'm
yes.
purposely not going to say too much about any of the films because I'll to talk premises and that, but let's not talk about them. A short film should not be over talking. I don't talk about filmmaking in general, and also why you gravitate towards horror. Because I take it you're not primarily horror filmmakers. It's just something you've done. Would I be right?
Right for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and yourselves?
This is our first horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have a love for the genre, and we probably will make more horror filmmakers, but we wouldn't necessarily call ourselves horror filmmakers. We're filmmakers.
Yeah.
What do you think is the attraction of the horror film? It's the big question.
So broad.
Well, you see, if I make it broad, you're going to come up with something amazing and make me sound good. I want you guys to talk.
I don't know. Maybe it's just because of the psychological side of things where people feel like this could be something that could happen in some way, because it's like for You're Not Home, we were kind of using real societal issues to make a horror film out of that. So it's just almost like we're taking something that we all see in some way or identify with or experience in some way, and then push it to the extreme on how things could really kind of like go wrong from a psychological aspect. So maybe that's why it's been doing well. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of like the extremes of empathy, isn't it? It's pushing that empathy, and then there's a catharsis in it, I think.
I always say comedy and horror have more in common than people realize. It's about pushing certain buttons. With horror, again, this idea of pushing people to fear, disgust, or whatever is a big part of it. But a really clever horror films. I went to a great chat with Ben Wheatley, and he said, horror is not about horrifying. There's a lot of other things going on in it. It tries to make you think, as both your films do. You also play very deeply within the ambiguities of what's going on. You're not trying to tell the audience how to think. You're presenting certain muscles. And in short films, did you find it hard to work in a short film, that you were frustrated that you didn't have more time? You guys first, because yours is 23 minutes or thereabouts, isn't it? It's
25, yeah.
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 Definitely long. Maybe a bit self-indulgent in that regard.
Yeah. The way we made the film kind of lent itself to giving us a lot more time to hone it and a lot more time to, delve into various aspects of the story, because we made it by ourselves in lockdown. It meant that we weren't waiting around for scheduling crew or cast or anything like that. It wasn't supposed to be like that. It was supposed to be a 5-day shoot, but we were able ourselves just to go over it a couple of times, perfect it before we actually committed it to film. So I found that because of the situation, shooting it during lockdown, we found that the time wasn't really a problem for us.
We had time.
We had plenty of it.
Something short filmmakers don't have a lot of. We had time. I think maybe that did dictate the overall length in the end. We didn't feel like we had to drop things to fit into a small schedule. So I think it allowed itself to be a long short.
Yeah.
Did you find that your budget constraints were great for you creatively, or was it just a curse?
I think because it didn't have funding per se, I found that was kind of the catalyst to kind of push it as far as we could within our own means, because we were self-funding it. It meant that we had to come up with a lot of creative solutions to problems that I don't think other short filmmakers would have the privilege to overcome, because they would be constrained by, the amount of cast, the amount of crew, the amount of time that they have. So it meant that the set, for example, we could take our time and just really perfect it before we roll the camera. So
I think it's inherent, though, that the limitations they breed creativity. You have to think of smart ways to work whenever you're limited. So I think it's been a good thing for creativity.
But as you sound like you were surrounded by a lot of love and a lot of talented people as well, which makes up for a lot of money. Was that?
Yeah,
yes, a little bit.
Yeah, it was. We actually shot it out in my hometown, which is very rural, very remote, and family and a couple of local businesses kind of were quite accommodating in terms of the amount of time that we had the premises that the set was built in, for example, and the furniture, which was authentic famine set furniture. We got that for free because my father knew someone, so there was a lot of local spirit in the film and a lot of favors that we might still owe, but we were able to really stretch our budget because of that as well, because of the interest that people took in it.
But it also helped that the actors were behind the camera as well. That did help, didn't it?
Well, I don't know if that helps.
It wasn't supposed to be that way. We had a cast in place. The cast were actually booked in their Airbnbs. They were ready to come down from all the way from Connemara, one of them. But we were scheduled to start shooting on the 16th of March, 2020. Kind of so busy prepping that we were kind of like COVID in the background, and then it hit and we had to shut everything down for a couple of months. So the fact that we're in it wasn't the original.
Yeah, it wasn't planned.
Well, listen, I've been there, actually. I've been there with a feature film where I ended up being one of the leads in it just because we understood the nature of our independent filmmaking was not going to suit everybody else's head. And a lesson I learned a long time ago is no one else really cares as much as you do.
Yeah.
Derek, you got some money through Limerick County Council, was it? Or through Limerick Arts?
Limerick Council, through the engine scheme.
Tell us a bit about the engine scheme.
Oh yeah, so the engine scheme is a new scheme run in the Midwest to kind of help support up and coming writers, producers, just filmmakers in general from Tipperary, Limerick, and Clare. So I wrote the script and handed it in, and then got to the second stage, and then was lucky to be one of the final six. So six, I think from 10 from 15 we get shortlisted to the final six. So the final six of us had our films funded and producers and the whole shebang to make a short film, which was a great opportunity because lots of us, including myself included, hadn't had a directing opportunity up until that moment. So that was a great way for us to have our foot in the door. Yeah.
Your budget was quite low as well. You didn't really have tons of money. I mean, was it a big scheme?
No, it wasn't a big scheme, but it was a much appreciated scheme to point that. But it wasn't a big scheme, and we had to kind of use local crew. So again, the whole purpose of the whole scheme is to kind of like give everyone a chance, that people who wouldn't, people like us who wouldn't, have the big shots and maybe bigger cities and things like that. So yeah, but it wasn't big, but it was, again, some favors here and there, and people coming in and getting local talent and just people loving the story and wanting to help us out. So that was how we kept going until we finished the film. And yeah, we shot in 3 days, and it was a long 3 days, and it was a bit of an ambitious one, to be honest.
And you guys, I said, even though you shot over a longer period of time, there's still an awful lot of work gone into that time. But 3 days there was an awful lot going on in that film.
Yeah.
How much prep was gone into it?
So we did a bit of prep beforehand in the recce and everything. So I was working with Greg Burrows, my producer from Carbonated Comet, and the both of us would go to all the recce's, and then at some point, the DOPs and every other cast and crew would come along. But in the initial stages, it was just kind of going from place to place, looking for locations and knocking on the door, asking if we can shoot here. We got a few rejections and people being like, no, yes, no, and then no at the end. But finally, we got a nice location and we had to shoot everything in one location.
That was a pretty amazing location. That swimming pool looked amazing, and those rooms had a nice eeriness about them.
Oh yeah, we had a fantastic production designer who changed the whole thing. We shot it in Mongret College in Limerick, and our production designer would just kind of like change the baseball room to, you know, food court, or then the hostels. He would change it and pad all the bunks and repainted the whole room. And downstairs was a church and a school, and so many things were going on in the building. Like, so we kind of walked around it, and yeah, we were lucky to have that location.
And both films featured VFX, very modest but very lovely done VFX. Would you guys, who was your production designer? Were you doing a lot of that work yourselves?
That was just the two of us, yeah.
Oh wow, I mean, that's amazing.
Both production design and VFX was all in-house.
Mhm.
So it was production design was a big part of it,
Yeah.
a huge part of it.
There's a lot of prep involved.
Mhm. A lot of research as well. We went as far as Skibbereen to go to the Famine Museum in Skibbereen
Yes,
to
Lord, yeah.
research as extensively as we could the type of walls they would have had, the type of dress they would have had, just to add an air of authenticity to the setting.
And what was the key for you that made this idea one that you wanted to chase and put in so much energy and hard work into? What inspired the idea?
The first inspiration was actually a podcast. It was the Blind Boy podcast.
Oh,
And I was literally driving home from work one day, and he started telling the story of Bridget Cleary, who was, they call her the last witch burnt in Ireland. And it was the first time I'd ever heard of the changeling mythology. It had eluded me up until that point. And I had to actually pull the car over into an Apple Greens and sit and finish the podcast. And as soon as I get home, I made MC listen to it.
Yeah, and contagious enthusiasm. We just started spitballing back and forth, and we came up with the story pretty quickly. And I think just once we knew that the idea had legs and had potential, we both became obsessed. I think we just had to make it.
Yeah. Plus, it was probably about 2018, and this was before A Hole in the Ground and You're Not My Mother, before these films had been mentioned. So we knew that the zeitgeist would bite us in the ass, so to speak. So we had to get something done before anybody else captured this particular folklore from underneath us. And
It happened anyway.
it kind of happened anyway. But
yeah. What's the Cronin's film? It touches on it as well. What's that called again?
Hole in the ground.
that's
and
all.
then-
Hole in the Ground. Hole in the Ground.
Hole in the Ground,
Yeah.
Yeah, and suddenly it always happens that way, doesn't it? No one's doing anything, and then it's the old bus analogy. No, it's no buses, and then three come along at once. But no, yours is very different. It still has its own unique sensibility, heart and soul, as it were. And I really wanted to see. I could have hung around a lot longer in both the environments of what you were creating. Do you think either of you might feel that there's a feature film growing from the work you've done as shorts? Not that you should naturally do that, but a lot of time that there is that frustration of wanting to do a feature, and I could see it in those two films. They could definitely have deeper consequences as feature films.
Yeah, I think we have feature ambitions, not necessarily within that same story, but within the realm of it, within the same kind of superstition taking hold of a family, basically that kind of thing in period Ireland.
It would be a lot bigger in scope, and it would take in some more geopolitical aspects as to, why this would happen to a family. So I think it's something we've been heavily researching since we made the short, and we don't want to give away our sources. So we have a story.
We have a story, yeah.
Did you ever hear of a TV series called Rourke?
Don't think so.
It was a priestly operated documentary series from the 60s and the 70s, I think. But they did an actual, and you'll find it easily enough, but they did one on witchcraft in the 60s and people doing bold things. In Ireland, have you ever found an egg in your hay in a barn? It was a bad thing. It meant that you were being hexed by a local witch or somewhat. But superstition hasn't gone away, and it's interesting seeing how alive it can be even today. And I just think that those changeling mythologies are still floating around in the back of people's minds and hearts.
Absolutely.
But Derek, without giving away your story, there's one really interesting image of the older brother sees an iconic, almost a doppelganger. It's very representative of his home country. Was that inspired by anything specific from your own culture and your own sense of folk stories, or was it just a symbol of him feeling a loss of who he was coming to this space?
I guess a combination of both. But like for me, it was the cultural thing. There was a part of it for me that was sort of like who you used to be, almost like you've come to this new place now, but like still being haunted by, your old self, and you're trying to shed away that skin and kind of like adapt to this new life, but it's not happening because you don't really belong here, but you don't really belong there either. So that whole costume and everything, and even the music, that was all inspired from my own tribe. Not in terms of the fashion. With budget and everything, I couldn't find, the right, but like I could find something close enough that still kind of like gives the illusion of how do you say it? Not to make it exactly, but to give the appearance of something. I don't know how that scene looked in terms of like audiences, but that was what we were going for.
And dare I ask, is that the story inspired by your experiences here, or what stories you heard, or?
There's a combination, different bits. And funny enough, I got asked that question in the beginning of the film, like what was the intention when we see the guy sitting down on a chair. And for me, that wasn't the original beginning even. It's just, again, with location and changing of the script, but the intention is what consistently remains. So even if we find ourselves changing location or changing, storylines or whatever, the intention still remains there of feeling, what's the word? Stagnated, feeling like, that beginning scene. And all of this, even when the idea originally came from someone who I came across from direct provision, of course, and I've known people who they've lived their life there for a very long time, and I had to do lots of interviews under the record, so no one, and did my research and everything, and been there myself. And so I kind of got, from my own side of things, having to, being an immigrant, blah, 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 and all of that. So I mixed in with all the whole, supernatural elements of things and all. And that was what we landed in. Yeah.
And this is your first horror film as well, isn't it?
Yeah, this is my first directorial short film.
It's your debut as well. I thought you directed another. Oh, that's fantastic. Great debut. Brilliant debut. But back to the process of filmmaking, you both worked with, you did a lot of preparation, you had your scripts, and then you had to physically go to your space and things change. Was there any happy events out of those things that I suppose we touched on a few in terms of how you start realizing you can use a location differently, or suddenly things aren't as far or near? You guys, as you say, you got a very strong sense of your location and your place because you're from there. Was that a huge help in the end?
I think we were originally looking for a standalone actual cottage that we could shoot in. So we kind of had to pull it back and realize that it wasn't really feasible. We weren't finding an actual cottage at all that we could shoot in.
Nothing accessible or safe, especially considering that we were planning to have an infant in the space. And the way it worked out, we didn't have an infant in the space at any time. So that was more to do with COVID. But the way we had originally planned, one of the reasons why we had to go about making a set was safety as well. Having an open fire, having a child, having people coming and going and sitting waiting for us to set up, because we're skeleton crew as well. So I feel like the limitations... It was almost like a blessing in the end.
Yeah, I think it worked out better. Obviously, the original intention is this isolated house out in the middle of nowhere, and we found a shell of a building that we built upon in VFX. But having to then kind of go back to the drawing board and kind of look at the script and think, how do we simplify this? So even just containing the script a bit more in that one location, that was kind of, that came later in the process. We were going to have all these other kind of exterior shots that just didn't work out. So
lots of Steadicam work and like roads and more extras and things like that. So because of the way it worked out, it had to be stripped right down in terms of everything, really.
I kind of forget what the question was. Sorry.
you have answered it, because it's a bit this kind of restrictions kind of they shouldn't diminish. They should actually make you fire up and go, no. Sometimes sometimes you put out 4 pages that you put loads of work into, and if you shot the 4 pages, it would have meant another 200,000, and they go, and it makes the film better.
Yeah.
There's still a couple of incidents of that, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we could have kept shooting. It would have just been a feature in the end.
Well, you have the energy. You have the energy for it. There's no doubt, and the talent. So yeah, who knows? Maybe the next one will be done that way as well. I don't think you let anyone stop you. But tell me this: did it change much from its original concept?
I don't think it did. I think we kind of settled on a story pretty early. We settled on the famine era. We were going to maybe feature a little bit more of the famine, but it didn't need it. So it's been set in its concept and its story for quite a while. We kind of
because it's kind of based on a lot of accounts of changeling infanticide. I think because of the research that we put into it, we wanted to keep the story as true to the actual events that are recorded as possible. So it didn't leave a lot of leeway for adding anything else in terms of character or anything like that, because it was already set from the historical context.
But I think we stuck pretty close to our original vision as well. Whenever from script, I think if you were to read the script and watch the film, it's so close. There wasn't much that we deviated from. Yeah.
And you, Derek, did you find that things were changing much as you went shoot? I mean, your 3-day shoot again that's a fast turnaround for, especially the amount of energy and work that I saw on screen. There's no. But was it a much change script by the end of it, or did you just stick to your blueprint? You didn't have time to mucking around it.
It was very much we had, like, part of the scheme, we had like editors and mentors and blah blah blah, so we had a lot of work through. It was just the beginning scene that got changed just because of the location that we had, but the story remained the same, the intention remained intact.
They say that shooting a film is like putting down train tracks for a moving train. I think that's proof of that. So, are you guys are going to be at the festival? Are you going to go down for it, or?
I don't think we can make it.
Yeah, it's possible we won't. Yeah, unfortunately.
And you said you're at the end of your journey with the festivals. Are you at the beginning, Derek, or have you shown them any?
Yeah, we're still at. We only had our premiere in Galway. That was in July, so we're still pretty much in our first year.
And tell me, guys, what's the festival scene like these days? Is it exhausting in terms of getting into festivals? And it's a tough. It seems to be more festivals and films out there sometimes.
Yeah, there's a variation in festivals. Sometimes they surprise you. Sometimes they're excellent, and the communication and everything's excellent. And then sometimes you kind of get lost in the mix, depending on the size of the festival. But I do find that the Irish festivals are very welcoming and very communicative, and they'll support you and they'll promote you. Like, even look at what we're doing now for Still Voices. It's just it's great to be part of it. But with some festivals, you're sending it off to America and it's playing in a bar, and you don't get any real sense of what happened or how people received it. So it is great to go along, though, whenever you get the opportunity.
It is a tougher game, though, isn't it? There's so many films being made. You all ahead of you, Derek. You should get in touch with these guys and get some tips.
Yeah, I understand everything they're saying, and I agree with the Irish.
I think the main distribution is Film Freeway now, isn't it? Don't they handle a distribution thing? So finally, horror movies. It's Halloween. I know there's a lot of horror films down here. There's another one, a few of those that I'd love to have a look at. You said you love your horror films. So what would be inspirations for you horror-wise? What's your horror pick that you would recommend to people? I want to hear some horror films.
You go first.
I don't know. Do I fall back on an old classic? Because for me, I can't get sick of The Shining. You know, that's a classic for me.
Yeah, well, I would agree. I saw a fantastic alternative top 5 list today on YouTube on Cinefix, and they mentioned The Shining, but they said in an alternative universe, if there wasn't The Shining, they said what would be the movie. And they picked a beautiful film actually in its place. And I don't know if you remember it. There was a great 60s film based on Turn of the Screw called The Innocents. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend seeing that film. Because it's in the realms of your folk horror in terms of where it's playing it. Is it madness or is it the supernatural? And it's a brilliant book. You know, I don't know if you read much horror or old stories. It's not M.R. James. It's the other James, the American. It's called Turn of the Screws, the original book, but The Innocents, that is an absolute joy. It came around 5 years before The Haunting, which was a Robert Wise, which is another great ghost film. What about you, Derek? What's your horror movie to recommend for people listening in today for their Halloween choice?
Oh, Hereditary would be number 1 by Ari Aster.
That's a nice one.
That was second on our list.
Yeah, I find myself I'm getting old school these days. I find that I think of all the films in the last 10 years, horror wise, I think the best for some, I don't know why, for me is It Follows. It's stuck to a very simple principle and idea. It didn't over egg it, and it scared you as a horror film, and it didn't force any of its issues into the mix in that way that I see in a lot of horror films these days. I thought that was great. I hope they never make a sequel to that, because it'd be. Can you imagine how atrocious that would be? Another favorite is it's much older now. I think is it 2004, The Descent.
Yeah, Neil Marshall, isn't it?
It's the best thing he ever did. Definitely the best thing he ever did. Yeah, guys, fantastic work. Really, really impressed. Loved every bit of it. You did beautiful things, because from making films myself, I know what goes into it. So I watched them, and I was really appreciating the creativity and the craft that went into them. So I couldn't get over what you guys achieved on Little or Nothing. I thought it was amazing. One final question for you guys about your film. You chose to shoot in 4:3. Was that a big choice, or was it sudden, or was it an argument? What happened there?
It wasn't an argument at all. No, we went for the 4:3, not to completely emulate The Witch by Robert Eggers, but to create that style of claustrophobia within the cottage, especially. And one of the big influences on that choice, and the choice of camera and the choice of lighting and everything, was Come and See, the Russian war film.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Which is a horror film.
Yeah,
it is a horror film. There's no doubt about it. And that beautiful kind of washed look to it. If it's the right way of saying it. And your cinematography choices. What was guiding you with your cinematography, Derek?
I just told Evan Barry, our amazing cinematographer, that we wanted it to look as, intimidating, suppressing, and just everyday look to it, just to look like exactly what you'd see from that part of the, life. And so I just let him choose, and that was what we got, and I loved it.
See, that's good directing. That is, know when someone else has the skills to pull off your vision and then claim it. You didn't claim properly though.
I just wanted to say to Derek that I really enjoyed his film. Really, really, really enjoyed it.
We were a wee bit intimidated coming onto this. The 2 films that you guys have made. It was like, very impressed. And that's your debut. It's amazing.
Thank you so much. I was going to say right back at cheers just before we ended. I loved your location. I didn't even know you was the one in the movies. Like, you did an amazing job in front and behind the scene. I loved the story. Not to give anything away, but I didn't even, just now you said it, I completely didn't even realize I never saw the baby. which was something like so interesting because, yeah, and I saw the location and how you built your set, and to hear that you all did it yourselves, I have utmost respect and admiration. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I have to say, I was so glad they were good films because I had to sit here and talk to you guys. Guys, congratulations on your work. I look forward to your next project, both of you. I hope you get out there and do that frustrating global trek with your film, Derek. And good luck with the results you get from the work you've done as well. Thank you so much. I'll like a big shout out and thank you to the Still Voices Festival for having us talk on this podcast and for having your films. And I look forward to meeting you sometime down the line again, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Ryan,
much.
thanks, Ryan.
The 2022 Still Voices Film Festival takes place in Ballyman from the 9th to the 13th of November. So take a look at the programme at stillvoicesfilmfestival.com.